My name is Morgan Ingram. I'm 32 years old. I work 12-hour shifts in an emergency room where I've held the hands of strangers as they took their last breaths, and I've stitched up wounds that looked impossible to close. But nothing prepared me for what happened at my sister's wedding. 3 weeks ago, in a ballroom dripping with crystal chandeliers and white roses flown in from somewhere expensive, my younger sister took a microphone in front of 200 guests and turned me into a punchline. She smiled, the kind of smile that says, "Watch this," and she said, "My sister is a single mother unwanted by anyone." The room laughed. Not a gasp, not a pause, laughed. Then my mother, from her champagne-drenched table near the stage, added, "She's a used product." More laughter. My father covered his mouth, not in shock, to hide a smirk, and beside me, my 5-year-old son Ethan tightened his small fingers around mine. His voice was barely a whisper. "Mommy, why are they laughing at you?" If you've ever had a moment where your entire body goes cold and hot at the same time, where humiliation burns through your skin while your heart just goes still, you understand what that felt like. But there was one person in that ballroom who didn't laugh. And what he did next shattered everything my family had built. Before I tell you that part, and trust me, it matters, I need you to understand how we got there. Because cruelty like that doesn't appear overnight. It grows slowly, quietly, over decades. I grew up in a 4-bedroom colonial in Greenwich, Connecticut, white shutters, manicured hedges. The kind of house where everything looks perfect from the outside. Inside there were 2 daughters, the princess and the workhorse. Vivien was the princess, 4 years younger, blonde like my mother, bright smile, effortless charm. Teachers forgave her missed homework. Boys forgave her missed texts. My parents forgave everything. From the moment she could walk, she was daddy's little angel and mom's mini-me. I was the responsible one, which in Ingram language meant low maintenance, self-sufficient, uncomplaining, invisible. When prom came around for Vivien, my mother drove her to Manhattan to try on gowns. She chose a blush pink Sherry Hill dress, hand-beaded, $500, shimmering like something out of a bridal magazine. When my prom came 2 years earlier, my mother looked at me over her reading glasses and said, "You don't need all that, Morgan. You're the simple type." I bought my own dress. Clearance rack at Macy's, $63. I remember the exact number because I counted babysitting cash for weeks to afford it. Our bedrooms told the story, too. Vivien's was the corner room, balcony overlooking the garden, white lacquered furniture, fairy lights strung across the ceiling. Mine was next to the utility closet, hand-me-downs from our grandmother's estate. I never hated her. How could I? She was a child benefiting from a system she didn't create. But late at night, staring at the ceiling, I would ask myself one question over and over. What is wrong with me? What flaw exists in me that makes my own parents look through me like I'm glass? I didn't know then that question would follow me all the way to her wedding day. I met Kevin at 24, second year working ER at Hartford General. He was confident, charming, the kind of man who made you feel like the only person in the room. We married a year later. My parents attended. But at my own reception, my mother spent most of the evening telling guests about Vivien's prestigious PR internship in Manhattan. "She's going places," she said, then added almost as an afterthought, "Both my girls are doing well." Almost. The marriage unraveled faster than I could understand it. Kevin had a talent for erosion, not screaming, not hitting, just questioning, criticizing, making me feel smaller. When I discovered he was sleeping with his regional manager, I was 7 months pregnant. By the time Ethan was 14 months old, I was divorced. 27. Working night shifts, dropping my son at daycare that charged by the hour while I kept strangers alive under fluorescent lights. My mother's reaction, a sigh. "I always worried you didn't know how to keep a man happy." Vivien texted once. "That sucks. Maybe try therapy." No offer to help. No asking about Ethan. Nothing. I told myself I didn't need them. I just needed them to stop treating my pain like background noise. Daniel Mercer entered the story 2 years before the wedding. Vivien met him at a charity gala. Children's rights attorney, takes pro bono cases, quietly successful. The first time I met him was at a family dinner. He shook my hand, then crouched down to Ethan's height. "Hey, buddy, is that a T-Rex?" Ethan beamed. No one in my family ever knelt to his level. Daniel did. Throughout dinner, I noticed something else. He watched, not casually, observantly. The way my mother redirected every topic back to Vivien. The way my father laughed louder at her jokes. The way I automatically stood to clear plates while Vivien stayed seated scrolling her phone. Later, as I loaded my car, Daniel appeared beside me. "Does your family always treat you like that?" he asked. "Like what?" "Like you're invisible." I forced a laugh. "That's just our dynamic." He didn't laugh. "You're a good mother," he said. "Event's lucky." I didn't know why those words nearly broke me. Maybe because no one in my own family had ever said them. The wedding invitation arrived in a cream envelope thick enough to feel royal. The Carlyle Hotel, Manhattan, 200 guests. Estimated budget, $150,000. My parents paid for everything. When I got married, they contributed $2,000 and complained about it. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Vivien called. "Wear something understated, I don't want attention pulled away." "And Ethan?" I asked, a pause. "Keep him quiet." Table 23, near the service entrance. So we could leave quickly if he made a scene. The positioning should have told me everything. But I just wanted to survive the day. The ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, white roses cascading like waterfalls. String quartet playing Vivaldi. I wore dove gray, forgettable. Ethan looked perfect in his navy vest. "Mommy, it's so pretty," he whispered. Table 23 was half hidden behind a pillar, close enough to the kitchen doors to hear staff shouting orders. No one from my immediate family came to greet us. They worked the room like politicians. My mother in Valentino, my father in Armani, Vivien in Vera Wang that probably cost more than my annual rent. She stopped at our table briefly. "Remember what I said about keeping him quiet?" And then she was gone. Later, during photos, my mother blocked me from stepping forward. "Immediate family only." I understood. I always understood. When the clinking of crystals silenced the ballroom, I didn't know we were about to become entertainment. Vivien took the microphone. Perfect tears, perfect smile. She thanked my parents, spoke about love, family. Then her eyes landed on me. "Especially my sister." "Stand up, Morgan." 200 faces turned, I stood. Ethan squeezed my hand. "My sister is a single mother." Laughter. "She got married young, had a baby, and well, things didn't work out." More laughter. "My sister is unwanted. She's got baggage now." Then my mother's voice. "She's a used product." The room erupted. Ethan's voice cracked. "Mommy, why?" And in that moment, something inside me stopped trying to survive and started preparing to leave. For a moment after my mother said it, used product, time didn't just slow. It fractured. Laughter echoed under the chandeliers, bouncing off marble and crystal until it sounded unreal, like I was underwater hearing it from another world. I couldn't feel my hands, couldn't feel my feet, only Ethan's tiny fingers digging into my palm. "Mommy," his voice trembled. "Why are they laughing at you?" There is no training for a moment like that, not nursing school, not motherhood. Not 32 years of learning how to swallow humiliation without choking on it. Because when your child watches you being dismantled in public, you don't just feel hurt. You feel exposed, primitive, protective. Every instinct inside me screamed one thing: get him out. But my legs refused to move, because Vivien wasn't finished. She paced the stage slowly, savoring the attention the way performers do when they know they've captured a room. "You know," she continued, tilting her head with mock sympathy, "growing up, everyone asked why Morgan and I turned out so differently. Same parents, same house, same opportunities. And yet," she gestured toward me vaguely, "Vivien succeeded and Morgan," the pause was deliberate, cruel, the kind designed to invite the audience to fill in the insult themselves. "I used to feel bad for her," she said. "Poor Morgan, stuck in that sad little apartment with her sad little life." More laughter. I scanned the room. Some people shifted uncomfortably. A few avoided eye contact. But no one stopped it. No one stood. No one said enough. And that may have been the moment something permanent cracked inside me, because silence is rarely neutral. Silence chooses a side. Ethan's breathing had become uneven. I crouched slightly, brushing his hair back. "It's okay," I whispered, the automatic lie mothers tell to create safety. But he wasn't fooled. Children feel truth faster than adults do. Vivien lifted her champagne glass again. "Honestly, Mom is right. Morgan is damaged goods. But hey," she smiled brightly, "at least she's here to see what a real success story looks like." The applause hit this time. Actual applause. That was the lowest point, or at least I thought it was. Then I noticed movement at the head table. Daniel. At first, I assumed he was heading for the restroom, or maybe stepping out to take a call. Anything normal. Anything that would allow this nightmare to continue uninterrupted. But he didn't turn toward the exits. He walked straight toward the stage, each step measured, controlled, purposeful. The laughter began to thin as people realized something unscripted was happening. Vivien noticed, too. Her smile flickered. "Daniel," she laughed lightly into the mic. "Baby, what are you doing? I'm not done." He didn't answer, didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked somewhere else. I followed his gaze. Straight to Ethan, still trembling against me. That was the moment I saw it, the shift in Daniel's face. Not embarrassment, not confusion. Resolve. He reached the stage in seconds. And without drama, without grabbing, without raising his voice, he simply removed the microphone from Vivien's hand. The ballroom went silent. The kind of silence so complete you can hear fabric move when someone breathes. "Daniel," Vivien hissed, panic creeping into her voice. "What are you doing?" He lifted the microphone calmly. "I apologize for the interruption," he said. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Authority rarely does. "But there's something I need to say." Then he turned. Not to the guests, not to my parents, to me. For the first time that night, someone looked at me like I was a human being. Not a prop, not a joke, a person. Then he faced the crowd. "I've spent the last 2 years watching how this family treats Morgan Ingram." The air shifted. Guests leaned forward instinctively, the way people do when something real finally enters a room full of performance. 2 years of dinners where she was ignored. 2 years of holidays where she was excluded. 2 years of watching her be treated as less than nothing by the people who should love her most. Vivien grabbed his arm. "You're embarrassing me," she whispered sharply. He stepped away from her touch. "No, Vivien," he said evenly. "You did that yourself." A ripple moved through the crowd, not laughter, discomfort. Daniel continued. "I am a children's rights attorney. My career is built on protecting kids from environments that damage them." He pointed not aggressively, but unmistakably, toward Ethan. "That little boy is 5 years old. 5. And tonight you made him watch 200 adults laugh at his mother." No one moved. No one spoke. Even the waitstaff had frozen. "You called her unwanted. You called her damaged. You called her a used product." Each word landed heavier than the last. "I have spent my life fighting against exactly this kind of cruelty." His jaw tightened. "And I will not become part of a family that celebrates it." Vivien's voice cracked now. "It was a joke." "A joke," he repeated quietly. "You rehearsed it. You printed notes. You turned your sister's pain into entertainment." He stepped back from her, a visible distance, a visible decision. "I cannot marry you." The collective gasp was audible. Crystal glasses trembled in people's hands. "I won't." Vivien looked like someone had pulled gravity out from under her. "Daniel, please." But he wasn't finished. "My cousin has been live streaming this reception for relatives who couldn't attend." Dozens of guests instinctively turned toward the small tripod near the dance floor. "About 50 people have already witnessed exactly what kind of family I almost married into." Almost. He set the microphone down gently. "I'm sorry for disrupting your evening," he told the guests. "The bar is still open." And then he walked off the stage, just like that. No shouting, no theatrics, just truth followed by departure. The dam broke instantly. Voices exploded across the ballroom. Chairs scraped. Someone dropped a glass. And then, Morgan. My mother was already charging toward our table. Her face twisted with rage, but not at Vivien, not at herself, at me. "What did you do?" she demanded. "You poisoned him against her." I blinked slowly. I didn't say anything. "You've always been jealous," she snapped. Behind her, Vivien had collapsed into a chair, mascara streaking down her face. My father stood frozen, the human equivalent of a shrug. The narrative was already shifting. I could feel it. Guests whispering, glancing at me. Maybe the sister caused this. Maybe there's more to the story. Poor bride. It was happening again, rewriting reality. And suddenly I understood something with absolute clarity. If I stayed another minute, they would turn me into the villain of a story I didn't write. I looked down at Ethan. His cheeks were wet, his eyes swollen. "Mommy," he whispered, "I want to go home." That did it. Something ancient and protective rose inside me, not loud, not dramatic, just immovable. For 32 years I had stayed quiet, kept the peace, absorbed the insult. But this wasn't about me anymore. This was about the small boy learning in real time how the world treats his mother. I stood, lifted him into his arms, and chose the door. The distance from table 23 to the ballroom exit couldn't have been more than 40 feet. It felt like crossing an ocean. Every step echoed louder than it should have, my heels striking polished marble, while 200 conversations dissolved into stunned whispers behind me. I didn't rush, didn't look back. When humiliation reaches a certain depth, something strange happens. You stop trying to explain. Stop trying to defend yourself. You just leave. Ethan wrapped his arms tightly around my neck, his damp cheek pressed against my skin. "Mommy, are we going home?" he whispered. "Yes, baby." A tiny pause. "Good, I don't like it here." Neither did I, not anymore. Not ever again. But just as the massive ballroom doors came into reach, someone stepped into my path. Daniel. For a split second, I worried he might try to explain, apologize, soften what had just detonated behind us. Instead, he simply stood there, not blocking me, just waiting. "Morgan," he said quietly. Up close, I could see the tension still locked in his jaw, the adrenaline not yet drained from his system. "I'm sorry. You already apologized," I replied gently. "Not the way I should have." His eyes flickered toward Ethan. "I should have said something a long time ago." I adjusted Ethan on my hip. "You said it when it mattered most," I told him. "You saved my son from thinking no one cared." Something in his expression shifted, relief mixed with regret. He reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a simple white business card. "Daniel Mercer, attorney at Law, Family, and Children's Rights. If you ever need anything," he said, handing it to me. "Legal help, advice, protection from them, if it comes to that, call me. No charge." I slipped the card into my purse. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it with a depth he probably understood, because what he had done wasn't just brave, it was rare. Behind us, the ballroom had erupted fully now, raised voices, sharp instructions from the wedding planner, the brittle edge of a public disaster no amount of money could smooth over. Vivien's sobs cut through the chaos. My mother's voice rose higher, frantic. My father barking controlled, useless orders, but none of it belonged to me anymore. I pushed through the doors, and just like that, the noise died. Hotel corridors have a strange kind of silence, insulated, almost unreal after emotional violence. Ethan lifted his head slightly as the quiet wrapped around us. "Mommy, yes. Are you sad?" I thought about the question carefully. For most of my life, the answer would have been yes. But standing there, breathing freely for the first time that night, "No, baby," I said softly. "I'm not sad." And for once, I wasn't lying. "How about pancakes when we get home?" I added. "With chocolate chips. All the chocolate chips you want." His arms tightened happily around my shoulders. Children recover faster than adults when you move them toward safety. By the time Ethan was bathed, fed, and asleep, one arm flung dramatically across his dinosaur pillow, my phone looked like it had survived a natural disaster. 47 missed calls, 31 from my mother, 12 from Vivien, 4 from my father. I stared at the screen for a long moment before opening the messages. "Mom, 10:47 p.m. You ruined everything. Call me now." "Mom, 10:52 p.m. Vivien is hysterical. Daniel left. This is your fault." "Mom, 11:15 p.m. Do not ignore me, Morgan Elizabeth Ingram." "Then Vivien, I will never forgive you for this. You destroyed my life." My father's message was shorter. "Your mother is very upset. You need to call her. Need." The word almost made me laugh. I set the phone face down on the nightstand. For the first time in decades, I felt no urgency to respond, no reflex to fix it, no hunger to be understood. Then another message appeared. Unknown number. I almost ignored it until I read the name. Aunt Linda. Honey, I watched the live stream. I am so sorry. I had no idea they were capable of something like that. You didn't deserve it. None of it was your fault. I read it twice, then a third time. It was the first message from anyone in my family that named what happened for what it was. Wrong. Not exaggerated. Not misunderstood. Wrong. The tears came quietly. Not the burning kind. Not humiliation. Release. Because sometimes all it takes is one person seeing you clearly to remind you that you were never invisible. The screenshots arrived the next morning. Rachel, my best friend since nursing school, had texted at 3:02 a.m., "Do not read anything until you call me. I have something you need to see." 17 images waited in our thread. Her final message read, "A mutual friend's daughter is dating your cousin." She saw the family group chat. Morgan, they planned this. My stomach dropped before I even opened the first screenshot. The chat title said everything. Ingram family. No Morgan. I had been removed months earlier after asking why I wasn't invited to Christmas Eve. The messages were dated 2 weeks before the wedding. Vivien. I've been working on my speech. I'm calling her out publicly. Make her see what a disappointment she is. Mom, just don't go too far. We don't want to seem cruel. Vivien, she deserves it. Someone needs to put her in her place. Mom, you're right. She's always been an embarrassment. Just make it funny. People love a roast. Dad, don't mention me in it. Vivien, relax. She won't fight back. She never does. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Not spontaneous. Not emotional. Engineered. My mother helped script the speech that called me a used product. My father knew, said nothing. Rachel's final text glowed at the bottom. It was a coordinated attack. I set the phone down slowly. Across the room, Ethan slept peacefully on the couch, cartoon credits flickering silently across the TV. I watched his chest rise and fall, and something inside me, something that had spent 32 years hoping, finally went still. For decades, I chased approval that never existed, bent myself smaller, accepted crumbs, explained away cruelty, but seeing those messages erased the last illusion. There was nothing left to save. I opened a blank note on my phone, typed 2 words, no contact, no dramatic confrontation, no tearful demand for accountability, no final speech they could twist into more proof that I was difficult. Just silence. I blocked my mother first, then Vivien, then my father, and as I looked at my sleeping son, a sensation spread through my chest that I barely recognized. Relief. "We're going to be okay," I whispered. "I promise." 3 days later, they showed up anyway. But what happened in that hallway was the moment they realized the version of Morgan who stayed quiet was gone. I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped into the apartment building lobby. Not the dramatic kind of wrong. The quiet kind. The kind that waits for you. My mother stood near the mailboxes, wrapped in a cream cashmere coat that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My father hovered beside her, hands buried in his pockets, looking like a man who wished he were anywhere else. They did not belong in this building with its flickering overhead lights and scuffed tile floors. Yet there they were, waiting. Ethan squeezed my hand. "Mommy, why is Grandma here?" "I don't know, sweetheart." But I did. Some storms announce themselves long before they break. "Go wait with Mrs. Patterson," I told him gently, nodding toward my neighbor's open door. "I'll be right there." Mrs. Patterson, who missed nothing, appeared instantly. "Come on, young man," she said warmly. "I just baked cookies." Ethan hesitated, glancing back at me. "It's okay," I reassured him with a small smile. Once the door closed behind him, the air shifted. My mother spoke first. "You blocked our numbers." Her voice trembled, not with sadness, with outrage. "After what you did to your sister, you blocked us." A strange calm settled over me. "After what I did? You poisoned Daniel against Vivien," she snapped. "You destroyed her wedding. The venue is demanding full payment. Do you have any idea how much money you've cost this family?" I let out a short laugh before I could stop it. It startled all 3 of us. "I didn't do anything," I said evenly. "Vivien humiliated me in front of 200 people. You called me a used product. Daniel made his own decision." "It was a joke," my mother insisted, throwing her hands into the air. "A harmless joke." In front of my 5-year-old son, I replied quietly. That landed. For half a second, guilt flickered in her eyes, then vanished. Vivien is devastated, she continued, switching tactics. Her tone softened, the performance of maternal concern she had perfected over decades. Daniel won't answer her calls. The wedding photos are ruined. She's talking about therapy. Then therapy might be exactly what she needs. Her face hardened instantly. How dare you? I lifted my hand slightly. I'm going to say this once, and then I want you to leave. The words shocked her into silence. I had never interrupted my mother before, not once. I didn't poison Daniel, I continued calmly. He watched this family treat me like I was disposable for 2 years. That night he simply decided he wouldn't be part of it anymore. I'm not finished. The firmness in my voice even surprised me. You planned that speech. I saw the group chat. You helped Vivien write it. My mother went pale. My father stared intently at a stain on the floor. Vivien is crying now, I went on. Good. Maybe she finally understands what it feels like. Morgan, that's unfair. You called me a used product, I said softly. The silence that followed felt enormous. I inhaled slowly. I love you, I always have. I spent my whole life hoping you would love me back in a way that didn't hurt. My throat tightened, but my voice did not break. But I can't do this anymore, and I will not raise Ethan in an environment where cruelty is normalized just because it comes from family. I stepped toward my apartment door. Please leave. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then my mother's face shifted rapidly, shock, fury, calculation, before settling on her most reliable weapon. Tears. You're going to regret this, she said, voice trembling theatrically. When I'm gone someday, you'll wish you had been a better daughter. The guilt tactic. Old, predictable. Once it would have worked. Now it barely brushed against me. Maybe, I said quietly. Or maybe I'll look back knowing I protected my child from the same damage you did to me. Behind me, Mrs. Patterson's door opened slightly and Ethan peeked out, cookie crumbs dotting his chin. Mommy, are you coming? I smiled, a real one. Yes, baby, 1 minute. My mother suddenly lunged toward him. Ethan, sweetheart, come give Grandma a hug. I stepped between them, not aggressively, just firmly. No, the word cracked through the hallway like a dropped plate. He's my grandson, she protested. And he is my son, I replied evenly. I decide who has access to him. My father finally spoke. Morgan, your mother is upset. Let's all calm down. Goodbye, Dad. I took Ethan's hand and led him toward our door. At the threshold, I turned once more. My mother was crying harder now. My father stood beside her, helpless. I'm not doing this to punish you, I said. I'm doing it because I finally understand that I deserve better than what you've given me. Then I closed the door and locked it. The sound echoed louder than it should have. On the other side, my mother knocked once, twice, then stopped. They never came back. The video spread faster than my mother could contain it. Within days, relatives across the country had seen it. Cousins, aunts, second cousins whose names I barely remembered. Family gossip, the same network that once circulated whispers about my failed marriage, was now carrying something very different. The truth. Aunt Linda called that Tuesday evening. Honey, your uncle in Sacramento saw the video, she said gently. He used words about your mother and Vivien that I won't repeat. I didn't ask anyone to share it. You didn't have to. Once something like that exists, it travels. She lowered her voice. Your mother called me yesterday, tried to manage the narrative. I told her the narrative managed itself the moment she opened her mouth on camera. Despite everything, a small flicker of satisfaction warmed me. How's Vivien? A pause. Not good. Daniel officially ended things. His family returned the engagement gifts with a letter from their lawyer. Professional courtesy wrapped around absolute rejection. And Mom, she's calling everyone, trying to explain it was just a joke. But people saw the video, Morgan. No amount of spinning changes that. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to defend myself. Let her spin, I said quietly. I'm done explaining myself to people who don't want to understand. And for the first time, I meant it. 2 weeks later, Vivien attempted damage control. She posted a long statement online, carefully worded, clearly edited. What was intended as light-hearted humor was taken out of context by those who don't understand our dynamic 6 paragraphs. Not one apology, not 1 ounce of accountability. The comments section erupted. We saw the video. Nothing about that was playful. You called your sister unwanted. Own your mistake. Rachel sent me screenshots of the meltdown. She's getting destroyed, Rachel texted. Even her coworkers are asking questions. I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. Because vindication doesn't erase 32 years of being unseen. A few days later, Aunt Linda shared something else. Daniel's mother called your mom, she said. What did she say? Aunt Linda gave a low whistle. She told her, I didn't raise my son to marry into a family of bullies. You should be ashamed. I pictured it. A retired family court judge recognizing dysfunction instantly. Vivien lost her fiancé, her reputation fractured, her job under scrutiny, and I hadn't lifted a finger. Sometimes the truth is loud enough on its own. 3 weeks after the wedding, Daniel called me, and that conversation would open a door I never expected, not romance, not reconciliation, but something just as rare. Respect. I almost didn't answer the call. The number wasn't saved in my phone, and over the past few weeks I had grown cautious of unknown callers. Too many surprises had arrived disguised as concern. But something, instinct maybe, made me pick up. Hello, Morgan, it's Daniel Mercer. For a moment, I forgot how to speak. I sank slowly onto the couch, pulling a blanket over my legs as if I needed grounding. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Ethan was asleep down the hall, his dinosaur nightlight casting soft shadows on the ceiling. Daniel, hi. I hope I'm not overstepping by calling, he said carefully. I wanted to apologize. You already apologized, I replied. At the hotel. Not properly. There was a long pause before he continued, and when he spoke again, I heard something raw beneath his controlled voice. I watched your family treat you like you were disposable for 2 years, Morgan. 2 years. And I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere. His breath hitched slightly. I'm a children's rights attorney. My entire career is built around recognizing toxic family environments, and yet I convinced myself this was just family tension. That Vivien would grow out of it. You didn't know how bad it was, I said quietly. I knew enough, he admitted, and I still stayed silent. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. That night, he continued, when I saw Ethan's face, his words faltered. God, Morgan. That little boy watching his mother get dismantled for entertainment. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Emotion tightened my throat. You didn't just speak up, I said. You walked away from your own wedding. It was the only choice I could live with. Another pause. Then his voice softened. I meant what I said about helping you. If your family ever tries to harass you, if custody issues arise, anything at all. I will help, no strings attached. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. His answer came without hesitation. Because your son deserves someone in his corner. A warmth spread quietly through my chest. And so do you. I blinked hard, surprised by the sting behind my eyes. Thank you, Daniel, I whispered, for everything. When we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, not crying, not shaking, just feeling something unfamiliar settle inside me. Safety, not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that doesn't demand anything in return. 6 months passed. It's strange how life begins rebuilding itself the moment you remove the people who kept tearing it down. One ordinary Tuesday, my supervisor called me into her office. I assumed I'd forgotten paperwork. Instead, she smiled. Morgan, your patient satisfaction scores are the highest in the department. You're calm under pressure, compassionate, and exactly the kind of leader we need. She slid a folder toward me. Senior charge nurse, effective immediately. I stared at her, then at the folder, then back at her. You're serious? Very. I made it to the restroom before the tears came. Happy tears. The kind that arrive when you finally start believing you might actually be enough. Ethan started kindergarten that fall. He made friends quickly, a loud little boy named Oliver and a quiet girl named Sophie who shared his obsession with dinosaurs. One afternoon, his teacher pulled me aside. Ethan is a joy, she said warmly. Kind, curious, always helping other children. Pride swelled in my chest so suddenly it almost hurt. My apartment was still small, still cramped, still loud when the radiators kicked on. But it was ours. I covered the walls with Ethan's artwork. Crayon dinosaurs, finger-painted rainbows, and one wobbly portrait labeled Mommy in giant purple letters. It didn't look like much to anyone else. To me, it looked like home. I started therapy every Wednesday, 50 minutes of carefully unpacking 32 years of quiet damage. You were the scapegoat, Dr. Chen explained gently one afternoon. In families like yours, one child is idealized, and another becomes the emotional container for everyone else's discomfort. So it wasn't me. It was never you. The simplicity of that truth nearly broke me. For decades, I had twisted myself into impossible shapes trying to earn love that was never conditional on my behavior, only on their need for someone to diminish. Therapy taught me something else too. Silence is not strength. Boundaries are not cruelty, and walking away is not failure. Sometimes it is survival. I even started dating again. Carefully, slowly. Michael, a pediatric nurse with a crooked smile, asked me out for coffee after a long shift. Then dinner. Nothing dramatic, nothing overwhelming. Just gentle conversation and the quiet realization that someone could look at me without measuring my worth against someone else. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission to be happy. I was just happy. The attempts at contact came in waves. First, a birthday card for Ethan, postmarked late. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting instantly. Inside was a crisp $100 bill. To our grandson, we miss you. I deposited the money into Ethan's college fund, then recycled the card. Next came a message from an unknown number. Vivien, using a friend's phone. Morgan, we need to talk. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I didn't respond. Then a voicemail from my mother. Morgan, this has gone on long enough. Family is family. You can't cut us out forever. Delete. The hardest one came from my father. He showed up at the hospital. Something he had never done, not once in the 8 years I'd worked there. I found him waiting awkwardly in the lobby. 5 minutes, he said quietly. Please. We stepped outside into the gray November afternoon. Your mother is struggling, he began. She cries every day. Vivien won't leave her room. Thanksgiving was empty. I waited. He shifted his weight. I know what happened wasn't right. The admission seemed to cost him something enormous. But your mother loves you in her own way. I met his eyes. Dad, I spent 32 years waiting for Mom to love me in a way that didn't hurt. My voice stayed gentle. I can't wait anymore, and I won't let Ethan grow up waiting either. He nodded slowly. For the first time in my life, I believed he understood. 8 months after the wedding, I sat on our couch watching Ethan sleep. Tomorrow was his 6th birthday. A homemade chocolate cake waited in the fridge, slightly lopsided, overloaded with frosting exactly the way he liked it. A second-hand bike sat hidden in Mrs. Patterson's storage unit, wrapped in a bow I had tied 3 separate times before it looked right. My life wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful. And peace, I had learned, is far more valuable than perfection. Last week, Ethan brought home a school assignment. A family tree. Most children had drawn sprawling branches, grandparents, cousins, distant relatives. Ethan's page showed only 2 figures, a tall woman, and a small boy holding her hand. That's our family, Mommy, he said proudly. Just us. I hung it on the refrigerator at eye level, right where I would see it every morning. My mother never stopped trying to reach me. Neither did Vivien. Occasional letters arrived unread. Messages filtered through relatives unanswered. And the strangest thing, I didn't hate them. For years, anger had burned inside me, hot and consuming. But eventually, it cooled. Not into forgiveness, not into reconciliation, into something quieter, peace. I chose myself. I chose my son. And that choice saved us both. Sometimes people think walking away is an act of destruction. It isn't. It is an act of construction. Because once you stop pouring energy into people determined to misunderstand you, you finally have enough left to build a life. And I was building one. Steadily, deliberately, brick by brick. But there was still one final layer of healing left. A realization so clear, so grounding, it changed how I understood everything that came before it. Today, as I tell this story, the apartment is quiet. The kind of quiet that once would have felt lonely, but now feels sacred. Ethan is asleep in the next room, sprawled across his bed with one sock still on and his dinosaur blanket twisted around his legs. The soft glow of his nightlight spills into the hallway, painting familiar shadows on the walls. Tomorrow, he turns 6. There is a chocolate cake in the fridge, slightly crooked, overloaded with frosting, and a second-hand bike waiting downstairs, wrapped in a bow I retied 3 times because it never looked quite perfect enough. A year ago, I thought perfect meant approval. Now I know better. Perfect is peace. Perfect is safety. Perfect is a child who falls asleep without fear in his chest. If someone had told me 12 months ago that I would cut off my entire family, I would have laughed. Or cried, probably both. I grew up believing family was everything. That blood meant loyalty. That love meant endurance. Good daughters stayed. Good daughters forgave. Good daughters absorbed the hurt quietly so no one else had to feel uncomfortable. I was wrong. Family is supposed to be a refuge, not a stage where you are repeatedly cast as the disappointment. Love is supposed to feel warm, not like something you must constantly earn. And children should never have to watch their parent be humiliated just to keep the peace. The wedding didn't destroy my family. It revealed it. It stripped away the illusion I had spent decades protecting. Because once cruelty becomes public, you can no longer pretend it was accidental. Here is what I've learned. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is not cold. It is not an act of abandonment. It is the moment you finally recognize that your worth does not decrease simply because someone else refuses to see it. You do not owe loyalty to people who repeatedly break your spirit. Not your mother, not your father, not your sister, not anyone. For most of my life, I thought strength meant staying quiet, enduring, proving my resilience by how much pain I could carry without collapsing. But silence is not strength when it is rooted in fear. Real strength is walking away. Real strength is choosing yourself, especially when no one ever taught you how. Real strength is looking at the people who raised you and saying, calmly and without apology, I deserve better than this. Ethan will grow up knowing something I learned far too late. That love does not look like mockery disguised as humor. That respect is not optional, even within a family. That boundaries are not walls meant to isolate us, they are doors. And we get to decide who walks through them. That is the legacy I will give him, not the Ingram name, not the illusion of perfection. Just this. A mother who chose courage over conditioning. A mother who chose him. And finally, a mother who chose herself. People sometimes ask what happened to the rest of them. The truth is life moved forward for everyone. Vivien started therapy. Real therapy, according to Aunt Linda, not the performative kind. Apparently, some wounds run deeper than anyone suspected. I don't know the details, and I don't need to. I hope she learns kindness. I hope she learns humility. But her healing is not my responsibility. My mother still calls me difficult, unforgiving. She has rewritten the story so many times that some relatives believe the wedding collapse was my fault, that I provoked it, that Daniel was unstable, that everything was exaggerated. I don't correct them, because the people who matter already know the truth. My father sent me a message a few weeks ago, just 3 words, I'm sorry, no explanation, no request, no defense. I read it several times. Then I set the phone down and went about my day. Maybe one day I will respond. Maybe healing will open a door I cannot yet see. But forgiveness is not a debt we owe anyone. And reconciliation is not a requirement for peace. Aunt Linda has quietly become the family I always needed. She drives down every other month with containers of homemade soup, takes Ethan to the Children's Museum, and never, not once, pressures me to give your mother another chance. One afternoon, while we drank coffee at my tiny kitchen table, she said something I will never forget. Family is who shows up, not who shares your last name. She was right. Daniel Mercer mailed Ethan a dinosaur encyclopedia for his birthday. No note, no expectations. Just a gift from someone who remembered a frightened little boy and chose kindness anyway. It sits on Ethan's nightstand now, pages already dog-eared from nightly reading. Small kindnesses. They accumulate quietly. And somehow, they matter more than grand gestures ever could. So this is my story. not a tragedy, not a revenge tale. A release. A wedding that became a funeral not for a marriage, but for 32 years of chasing love that was never going to arrive. A little boy who unknowingly taught his mother the difference between endurance and self-respect. And a choice, not made in anger, not made in bitterness, but made with clarity. The choice to walk away, not in defeat, but in freedom. If you are listening to this, and something inside you feels uncomfortably familiar, if you have ever sat at a table where you felt invisible, if you have ever shrunk yourself just to be easier to love, if you have ever wondered whether you were strong enough to step away from the people who hurt you, then hear this. You are not hard to love. You are not too much. You are not the problem. Sometimes people cannot see your worth not because it isn't there, but because acknowledging it would force them to confront their own limitations. And that is not yours to fix. Walking away does not mean you stopped loving them. It means you finally started loving yourself. Tonight, before I go to bed, I will check on Ethan one more time. I will pull the blanket over his shoulders. I will smooth his hair. And I will whisper the promise I made the night everything changed. We're going to be okay. Because we are more than okay. We are safe. We are peaceful. We are free. And if there is one truth I hope stays with you after my story fades, it is this. Sometimes the bravest thing you will ever do is refuse to remain where you are not cherished. Sometimes the strongest families are the ones we build ourselves. And sometimes losing the people who never truly loved you is exactly how you finally find your way home.